Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. We're going to have a very exciting 90 minutes. And so, the whole idea of being disciplined and starting on time is also to give a message that the Himalayas cannot wait anymore. We have to be on time, and we would like to get things going. So waiting is no longer a luxury, for the mountains. So just to introduce, my panel, so we're going to focus on some key issues to do with the mountains, to do with the Himalayas. But the point here is that the Himalayas are a destination for adventure. The reason why people go to the mountains is because the people in the mountains have a very unique culture. And then that unique culture has been enabled by thousands of years of resource management, which enables people to thrive in those harsh environments. So it is one thing to say the environment is harsh, but then it is really heartwarming to say there are people who know how to manage those natural resources. And so the combination of the two actually creates an amazing tourism destination. And so today what we want to discuss is in moving ahead with climate change, how can we build on what we already have? So this is the theme that we want. So I have an amazing panel to moderate. So first of all, I'm going to ask Dr. Ghanagurung, please to come up on the stage. And there's a designated seat for you. And so just to introduce Dr. Ghanagurung, who is going to be the keynote speaker, is going to provide us a huge insight on how things are managed, but also the issues that we need to look at. Now, the key point that we need to look at is, so Ghanaji, नाम चेंज करा ना So your panel session 6 ko naam varsa the names okay so they'll get it right, don't worry. Yeah, so Ghanaji ali basnu bhayo hununcha no, that's good. Okay, so the next, so Ghanagurung, so he is from Mustang, and all of us know that even small children in Nepal now have to read about Ghana in the textbook, in the social science book. And so he is the man behind a lot of conservation work, but also specifically the snow leopard in the Himalayas. Okay, so Nadira Almarti, so please come up on the stage. And so we should give a big round, for this Omani woman who's actually climbed Sagarmatha. And so, there are very few people who have actually been on top of the highest point, and here's somebody who has actually done it. So it's wonderful to have that. Nadira, welcome to the panel. Now it's okay. So, technology will get it right at some point. So Maureen from Uganda, she's the Deputy Commissioner at the Water Ministry in Uganda. And so she feels that for some reason she doesn't understand why she's the only African, at this conference. But I'm sure we'll find ways to, find friends for her. But this is something that we really want to look at is policy and water policy, for these, affected areas. And so welcome Maureen, to Kathmandu. So then we have Chering Sherpa. Chering, would you please come up on the stage? And so Chering is one of those amazing people who actually helps manage, the pollution in Sagarmatha. And so pollution control in Sagarmatha is something that we would like to hear from Chering. And then, of course, we have Rajan Subedi. So please come up on the stage. So Rajan is with Oxfam office. But the amazing thing is the focus on livelihoods and then livelihoods leveraging natural resources, around Nepal. And so we want to hear these amazing stories, from there. So what we will do very quickly is we'll start with Dr. Ghanagurung, who will give us a keynote presentation, which will give us a context, and then we'll open up the panel, and then we'll open it up for the floor. So we have till 10:30, to do this, session. So Dr. Ghanagurung, can I ask you to start with your presentation? So Dr. Saab, presentation. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you, Anil Dai, and good morning to you all. Namaste, Jojo Loba Tashidere. I am very pleased to be part of the first Sagarmatha Sambaad and honored to be your keynote speaker for the session 6. So the topic itself is very clear. It says our mountains are the crossroads. Crossroads of our nature, culture, and adventure that we talk about. And most of the people in this room, I really scan through, knows that this is the only place that Earth touches the sky. And we have many people from in this audience who are from that Sagarmatha. So the mountains, when we talk about it, it's not just a landscape. It's a lifeline with the water. It's a sacred space for us all to worship culturally, religiously, spiritually. And it is most importantly a place where human spirit meets the adventure. So when we talk about mountains as life-supporting systems, where the system comes from, it's very clear. There's no life, no water, no life. So it comes from water. So the mountains are source of 10 major rivers. And I don't want to read them, it's already there on the screen. And suppose the water sources for 2 billion, and I think 2 billion has been for some time, but it might have increased. We might need to increase the data because population has gone up. And this mountain space for conservationists like me, it's a very important, it's a host over 35,000 plant species, many endangered, endemic wildlife and plant species, and iconic species like snow leopards you saw on the way you were driving, and tigers in the lowland. When we say mountains, mountains suffer, so does the downstream. Simply we need to realize internally. And interestingly, the elevations of the mountains, every culture is rooted in the elevations. And the Hindu Kush Himalayan as a range is one of the most diverse, with 240 million people, with one of the most diverse cultures, indigenous people, ethnicities, and Nepal alone has 142 groups alone. And it's very clear throughout the years, sacred mountains have shaped worldviews, traditions, and spirituality. And sometimes we ourselves have lost the connections, but the people from global north have come to learn more about it. And I'll get sometimes surprised. We even need to learn how to do a yoga, which is born from this part of the world. And particularly the indigenous knowledge, which is very much tightly linked to the nature and resilience. So when we talk about culture in the mountains, it is dynamic, we all know. It is alive, we are part of it. It's changing, which we will all witnessing, and it's adapting, because adaptation is not a choice. So when we talk about adventure, adventure is always with purpose, many different. So when you look over the adventure across Himalayas, it contains 54% glaciers, largest volume of ice besides 2 polars, which many people know about it. It covers 4.2 million square kilometers of space, including the highest mountains in the world. And most importantly, because of that, being the tallest mountains being in Nepal, Nepal is the heart of the mountain tourism. And tourism at the moment accounts only about 7% GDP. But we do it correctly with Crossroads, has a capacity to reach 25% GDP by 2030. And the moment we talk about remittance, which is 26%. And here, the adventure is in the crossroads, I was saying. We need economy, which is development. We need biodiversity, are the basis to develop. So these are in the crossroads. So I've been listening, everyone, and in plenary it made very clear the Earth is warming fast, and I don't have to say that you are already people who know about it, setting heat records after year. 23 was the highest. Again, 24 was high in the last 175 years. And we are talking about managing under 1.5 degree, and it has already crossed 1.55. So what does that mean? So clearly, we all understand the climate crisis is the Himalayas realities, which our Honorable Prime Minister was talking about yesterday. Our Chinese friends talking about it, Indian friends are talking about it. Everyone has talked about there's a reality of present today. Because science says that it's 0.3% per decade warming faster than global average. And we lose 1/3 of the ice by 2021, even we are able to keep the warming at 1.5, which is not going to be reality. And that means clear, all kind of disasters are coming. And for people, for mountainous countries like us, where water and energy security are under tremendous stress and threat. Biodiversity loss is a given, despite we did very well in this region. And the food crisis is we begin to see, and we're going to see more. So the rapid melting of the Himalayas is not a threat, future, it is present. So the culture and displacement, this is something I really see here, people from Sagarmatha, Mustang, and all the Himalayan ranges here. And this is my hometown, Upper Mustang. And look at the village, it's called Dey, displaced by loss of water sources, and relocated to one of the most vulnerable places on the riverbeds from climatic angle. And then slowly on the other side, in the other western part, we say as the Gumbo cordyceps is the gold of the Himalayas. It's also under threat because the snow patterns. And it's creating climate refugee. And it's not only issue of the Himalayas, it's the issue of the global. And for us in particular, Himalayan people, Himalayan range, the migration, out-migration, and loss of intangible heritage. Disappearance of indigenous seeds, traditions, and spirituality. And leading to disconnection from language, lifestyle, and cultural identity for the generation present, who are in the cities, and the generation to come in the future. For the adventure, the loss of unique cultural heritage is the very product of our tourism, which are losing. We just talked about in the tea room. When to say Sherpa minus Sagarmatha, what does it look like? Mustange minus Upper Mustang, what does it look like? See, it is an important foundation that we are talking about. When climate hits humanity, we are talking about loss of our own cultural identity. So the adventure, a changing climate. I saw the chair, municipality chair from Kagbeni, this village, that most people know about this. And adventure is under tremendous stress. Not only ecosystems of fragility, and it's further under stress. You saw changing extreme weather conditions are manifestation of climate impact. And it's happening more frequently at a scale. Just a week ago, people were staying in the base camp, were unable to climb Mount Everest because of the wind speed. And here we are talking about tourism. The time we're talking about diversifying it not only, but also having a zonation of value-based. Not necessarily everyone we talk about quantity. Quality with high value, low volume could be the time to think about it. For that, we need urgent need for climate smart, ecologically sound tourism infrastructure, backed up by education and human resources, to provide experience that people are looking for, to manage these resources. And the choice is ours. And sometimes I feel, as I'm getting older, I feel very strange. We know, but we don't seem to internalize. And we seem to forget immediately after what had happened. Look at Thame village. There are lots of municipal mayors here, mayors are here. Overnight, it's gone. 50% village. So what does that mean? It does mean we are losing fast the beauty and uniqueness of our tourism adventure product, our own heritage, as glittering mountains are converting into black rocks. As our water resources are drying up, little water is getting polluted, and even we need to serve 2 billion plus people. The culture, faith, and values are slowly eroding fast because the connection with the land and lifestyle, food systems are getting disconnected. People like in my village, our grains, indigenous grains, are replaced by apples. The way you plant indigenous seeds to grow your food healthy with medicinal property are replaced by something that and taking food of diabetes. Let alone what's going to happen, impact in the food security. And community linkages within in country, between the upstream and downstream nationally, and beyond our national boundaries, among neighbors, we are having difficult connections. And most importantly, the natural capital, which we call our tourism product, and our very basis of our own existence is under threat. More than that, when our head of government talks about prosperity for Nepal, and that prosperity of hope we are losing. So just to give a glimpse of where do we stand in Nepal in terms of climate vulnerabilities, you see the map. The way most of the tourism happens, trekking to mountaineering, are the most red zones. Where the hydropowers are lined up are the red zones. The only green zones which are climatically low impact, resilient, less vulnerable, are the where the protected conservation and low protected systems are, where the land covers are. And sometimes we also think about that too much. And this is something we need to think about it in every country when we're talking about upstream and downstream. And these protected areas are also the very important product of wildlife tourism. Whether it's in India, whether it's in Nepal, some of the parks with our tigers and rhinos, tourism is unthinkable. Okay, so what is the road ahead? And at the road ahead, we all strive for is humanity thriving in nature. Because nature is going to evolve. As long as there's water, as long as there's sun shining, we are the one who's going to lose. So here I'm proposing with my team. So what is that? It's getting low. One more back. Okay, it's coming sometime. It's taking a bit time, Reza. Why is it not coming? Text I sent. It's not coming. So the text is not coming, so we'll continue. So the road ahead, I will talk about, the first is life support system. The life support system are the two angles. The one is the time has come to look into the indigenous culture, indigenous seed, with more clarity as a priority. The linkages between intergenerational understanding and passing on the knowledge is another critical to look into it. When you talk about the culture, Documenting it, the indigenous knowledge and culture, is a critical. And doing so, that locally led adaptations, actions are critical. The other one, the adventure tourism. I've been saying that now the time has come that we need to find a donation for tourism. High value, low volume, mass tourism development with experience. Places like Muktinath, Lumbini, Pashupatinath, and many other places in India are mass tourism that we need to just manage experiences. Places like Sagarmatha with superlative. Places like Chiton with the superlative in the world, in the nature, wildlife. These may need to manage differently. And most importantly, the time has come to diversify tourism. So tourism benefit can be across, because that is, I see a long hope. The reason I'm saying is, if you build a house with 1 year, build a road is 10 years. Even hydropower is 10 years. But the tourism in Chiton has given 50 years of a job for 500,000 people, and will continue to give job if you manage that way that we're managing it. And governance, I just want to highlight here. Global commitment is there in terms of Global Climate Fund, Global Biodiversity Fund, Global Adaptation Fund. There are lots of commitments. Now we're talking about the Loss and Damage Fund. That the allocation and investment from the developed country is nowhere near what is needed. The very little that we are getting in, we also have a challenge of making the use of it. Our efficiency is very low. And I'm very happy to hear yesterday, across all the representatives of the governments yesterday, the regional collective agenda has to put together, so we're going to negotiate that better. Just like small islands have done it. The time we Himalayan countries can stand together regionally, because institutional mechanism is must to have that. And Nepal has taken a lead, and I wish we continue to keep the momentum going. And knowledge, science, and technology is important. So far, the climate science is so much driven by the global north. We might need to sharpen our own climate science, because that's what's happening, the challenges. Yesterday I heard about early warning regional systems, improving science systems, and it's critical that we need to have a mechanism to do so. The government institutions should enable us to do that. And then there's a transfer of empower local communities and their institutions where the suffering happens the most, where the people are bearing the brunt of climate impact. And in the climate finance, this is our proposal. The priority should be a grant-based, not loans, and dedicated to Himalayas, because the Himalayas are under threat. Common but differentiated impact you have heard yesterday. Proportional investment to the mess that's being created is important. And I'm really proposing here, I see now the senior government officials here, that we really, when we talk about investment, we are talking about large investments, which have a long-term investment should come in these countries like us. But that should be combined with a grant assistance. So we are to cover the additional cost of climate smartness and wildlife friendly, which I was talking about in Chiton and others. It's critical. And the investment and the sustainability areas also need to be the priority of the government and also the region. As we heard from Bhutan and everyone, the hydropower is one of the critical energy sources, and ANDC says that. But then how sustainable it is, we really need to think about it. Because many eggs are in one basket. The way economic vulnerability, the risks of glove, risks of cascading floods are a major issue. With this, I'm going to end. No, it's going. Okay? So my proposal here is that with you all, the COP30, with momentum which they have taken today, yesterday onwards from the government, under the leadership of government, the voices of the mountain should be the agenda in the COP30, clear and loud. So with this, I would like to conclude. Amidst the silence of mountains, the world can hear it is truth. So let Sagarmatha Sambaad be a turning point for climate justice from all angles. It should, there could be the turning point for environmental and social harmony. And most importantly, the Sagarmatha Sambaad be a turning point for the hopes for the Himalayan people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gurung. If you, please take the central chair here. So that lays the context, for our discussion. And I think, Dr. Gurung laid out very clearly that there are many people who live in the mountains, but there are even more people who live downstream of the mountains. And so you can look at it from water perspective, you can look at it from food perspective, but the point is whatever happens upstream, it is going to affect everybody. But then the way we've also done adventure or tourism up in the mountains really depends on the people and their culture in those areas. And with food, with water depletion, so those people may actually move. And then when people move, there won't be anybody to host you as a tourist. And so the Sagarmatha without the Sherpas, or Mustang, without the Thakalis or the Gurungs, or the Chitwan National Park, without the Tharus, would not be a really good, destination. So I think, the context is very clear, but also his conclusion that we do need to work both on the knowledge side, right? We need to really, be good at, what we do. But then there's the issue of governance, how do we govern these areas? But then also having dedicated resources. And so the Himalayas or the mountains, cannot be an afterthought, something that you set aside some money, but it's got to be a dedicated resource. So, Dr. Gurung, thank you very much, for those amazing words. So the panel, and so we discussed this with the organizers. So there are basically three areas that we would like to take up from this keynote speech. So one is, we're talking about markets, right? And so when we say markets, it's markets for tourism, but then also about practices that we have in terms of generating, products or destinations. So how do we do that? But then also in terms of a shared vision for preserving our natural capital. So do we develop tourism by depleting, or do we actually enhance the natural capital that we have? And so many years ago, people came to villages and then they were basically cooking for the tourists using rhododendron plants. It didn't take very long for people to realize that it's the rhododendron that people come to see. So tourism actually provided an incentive for rhododendron conservation. So I think people understand these issues. The second part is, of course, policy and institutions, but then also the finances that are needed, to make this happen. And the third, of course, is the people, the community, the women, the youth, who live in these areas. So those are the three broad areas in which we want to discuss. So maybe Rajanji, we start with you, and then just, move around, and we'll see where this, conversation goes. Please, Rajan.
Thank you, Anil sir. So let me start with the Dr. Ghana, who clearly indicated that there are a lot of problems. So there is a climate crisis, in the earth. And Oxfam did a study on, one of the area on climate crisis in terms of inequality. It says that 1% of the richest emit carbon pollution equal to 5 billion people. Look how scary the situation is. And the other thing is looking at the financial commitment that we have and the recent study that we have done. So here is a paper and which will be out after a month, in the website. So what it says is between 2011 to 2021, Nepal secured a total of $5.71 billion in climate finance. But among that, 70% of the total with bilateral finance and only 1% that comes from private sector and philanthropy. So now looking at it from the multilateral source, that's from the 70% among that. So the 53%, among 70%, the 53% that comes as concessional loans. Now, looking at our carbon emission and the penalty that we are getting. So we need to work on that, where Oxfam is having a campaign on that. So that's the work that we do at a global level. Now being at a local level, at a country level. So what we do, we have done the research, try to identify the scenario. So what's the context and how are we moving ahead? Then second is we work on innovative tools and technologies, because it's not only blaming others, it's also our responsibility, because we are also the part of this globe. And that's why, let me take you through an example, like to a river, as Dr. Khana already mentioned about the crisis on the mountain. So look at the people that are dependent within that river. So I'm taking through you a Mahakali basin. That's a sheer basin between Nepal and India. And when I was there with a project called Transboundary Rivers of South Asia in 2017, during that time, everyone knows that, like people living nearby that river always have a sentiment or a connection with the river. But the opposite on that river is the community were quite angry with that river, because they only used to get flood, disasters, and they don't have access to the river because of political sensitivity. The tag has been given on that. There were blame games. Either Nepal is polluting the river, India is polluting the river. It was quite difficult for us to initiate, like any activities on that river, because even the local governments, the civil society organizations, they said that it's a sensitive work that you are trying to do, and only the central government of Nepal and central government of India can do or can act on that. Then we started inviting people from the ground, from India side and Nepal side. We call it Mahakali Sambaad. That's like Sagarmatha Sambaad. So you can Google it, you can find reports on that. So now, on that forum, there were like blame games, because the river has been polluted, but people are getting water, like they are using those water for drinking during sand mining, they were using on that. Then we started asking them, so what would be the best option? What we need to do? The one common thing that we found between those communities is conservation of Mahakali River, sustainable use of Mahakali River. That was the terminology that has been coined by the community. This is not by the INGOs or NGOs. So that means they said that we need this river because we are getting a lot of things indirectly. Then we started with inviting private sectors. So one of the private sector was from rafting company. So then what he started saying, the rafting company from India side, so they were initiating their business since 2015. So during that time, he came into a panel, and what he said clearly is, look, what I'm trying to do here is, I started a rafting, but rafting is it's a traditional way of doing an adventurous game. But what I'm also, like diversifying the economy, in terms of diversifying the economy, what I'm trying here is, so rather than, like killing a fish and serving to a tourist, so he only gets maximum $5 out of it. But what he tried is, he does fish angling, which means, like taking out a fish, taking a photo. He earns $100 from a tourist, and that can continue for a long term. So that means now he is getting a lot of earning out of it. So then the community, now look at the migration rate on that area. Most of the people from Nepal side, they go to India saying that, I'm not going to India, I am going to the market. So that's the marketplace for them. So now, because of rafting, people have received the training on rafting. Now they are staying with their grandfathers and sons. So most of the people, they have returned on that area. And during the leisure period, because rafting does not continue in the rainy season, so they started their alternative business like agriculture. And even the homestays are working on that. Now, looking at it, what I am, giving a message to everyone, is that in that, very sensitive, politically sensitive area, people are interested to conserve the natural resources, and they look at the welfare. Why shouldn't we, promote and request these private sectors who are the watchdog of rivers? So let's, invite those private sectors, because we always blame private sector saying that they don't do. But let's have a collective effort. Ask them to come up with innovative ideas. And let's ask also, to make a plan of less polluting the nature. Thanks.
So, thank you, Rajan. That's a really good example. And so the more concrete we are, the better off we are. So this, transboundary, rivers. So the key points here, high value. So adding value is not just catching the fish, but creating a destination and also an activity that actually pays in hundreds of dollars instead of just killing the fish. So zoning also, as in what Dr. Ghana was saying, we don't concentrate just in a few areas, but there are many areas where we can expand to. And then also pricing, I guess, is a very innovative way, to do this. So Nadira, so again, here's somebody who's actually climbed Sagarmatha, and so few people who know what the world looks like from Sagarmatha actually. So your thoughts on the market, right? So this is one. But the second thing I think is, in terms of tourism, but also in terms of adding value, your thoughts. I'm sure when you're climbing, you're only thinking about breathing.
Yeah.
But now that you're down, maybe you can tell us, what you think.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Anil, and good morning, everybody. Namaste. I'm happy to be here. It's an honor that this conference, they look also after the climbers, who they've been in the mountains, and also the Sherpa, also to give their ideas, because they are the people who's in the field to see closely what's happening there. So yes, I've been in so many places in mountains, in Oman, here in Nepal, Himalaya, also Karakoram in Pakistan, in Alps, and I think it's what is give these adventures more value is the people who is living there. So if we'll not go across the people, so there is no value. We don't see any culture, so we going back just with ourselves. When I go to ABC, okay, you told me, Sagarmatha Base Camp, Sagarmatha Base Camp. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about people, about Buddhists. I learned about even the flags, what does mean, the color, what does mean. They taught me that I should go from right way or left way when I'm going up, when I'm going down. I've been participating in puja ceremony. I'm Muslim. Maybe I don't believe in this, but I respect and I understand, and I want to be there with the Sherpa, with the community of climbers who they believe in this. So we are sharing a lot while we are climbing and while we are doing our adventures. What's happening with the time that we are seeing less people living in mountains. The villages has become smaller. The houses is closed. Nobody there. So who will be meet? Who will see there? It's not enough just to see mountain and we climb the rocks and we cross through snow or ice. That's it. Will not be enough. It will not fulfill what we are looking for. So the culture we going back and we talk about it. This is the most important. Everybody say, how is Nepal? How it's look? What do you see? Like people, they looking for the culture I learned, the experience I get back with me. So this is the most important, and I think the key, the secret to keep this identity for mountains is from youth. We should bring and involve youth in everything. We should listen to them, listen to their ideas. What's their ideas to keep this community grow with the time, not become less. It should be a curriculum at the school. It should be to have a program about bring children and kids and youth working there, not just like for 1 or 2 days. We need sustainable for this program. What they can do. We are not, I think, selling experience. We are telling stories in mountains. That's what we need, and that what will save what we are looking for. The identity. That's Omanids have their own identity. Here in Nepal, they have their own identity in everywhere. So we don't want to lose that. So let's keep it with a special program, with the special activities, with all climbers. Who they go up there, up and down while they are doing their adventures, and I think we should care also about women who they are living there, and also youth. They have so much knowledge. unheard, so much knowledge, it doesn't go with the generations. So much stories until. So this is, I think, what's important. We should be open-minded for them, to give them a time and to listen for them.
Very good. So I think the key message there. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I guess the key message there is also the stories that you bring back. And so the experience of climbing is amazing, but the stories you bring back are the stories that the local people tell you. And I think those stories have to remain. And for those stories to remain, the people have to be there. And then the people have to be there on a continuous basis. So you cannot have broken things. And so young people have to be part of this. So I think all of us understand that when we say sustainable, I think anything is sustainable only if young people do it. And so one of the reasons why the festivals in Kathmandu are sustainable is because young people are participating. And so that young youth mindset, I think, is something that we really have to be mindful of. Wonderful. So Maureen, the whole idea of institutions, but then this whole issue of water, but then also resources. And so just wanted to pick your mind in terms of the work you do in Uganda, but then also what does this mean for the mountains as well as the people. Just see if it works. Otherwise, it's working. Yeah, please. So institutions, the finances, but then you focus on water in Uganda. So tell us a little bit about the work you do, but also what it means in terms of mountains and mountain communities.
So that would be the question on policy.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so when we look at policy and institutional reforms for innovative tourism in mountains, we need to look at reforms that look at sustainable development, reforms that empower the people, and of course reforms that help the people in the mountains to adapt to climate change. And the first thing would be to have an integrated policy frameworks for sustainable development. On the mountains, there are a lot of different sectors that are doing different things. But the planning often is it's separate. The people doing agriculture sit on their own. The people doing forestry sit on their own. The people doing the roads and infrastructure sit on their own. But at a policy level, it would be very important for us to have an integrated policy framework where we bring together all these different sectors as well as the communities to be involved in developing policies that are sustainable for the integrated functioning of these mountains and their ecosystems. And then also we need to look at strengthening structures and institutions that are involved in the sustainable development of these mountains. And of course, this would also involve empowering the local governments. It would involve empowering the local communities that live in these areas because they also participate in the management of these areas. So in Uganda, we are looking at, rather than have the central government be responsible for implementation of all the policies in the mountain areas, we are looking at involving the communities through community forest management, through community engagements, because they are the ones who live on these mountains. And therefore, if they're involved in the management of the mountains, it creates a sense of ownership. It creates a sense of them knowing that they are going to also benefit from the resources that come from these mountains. And then we also need to look at innovative financing mechanisms to encourage the small-scale enterprises to be able to participate in tourism in the mountains through access to finance. Now, I mean, yesterday, we were having very big stories about funding like the GCF and Adaptation Fund and all the different sources of climate financing. But how easy is it to access them? So these are some of the questions we need to ask ourselves. That they need to make these processes easy for SMEs to be able to access these finances, to be able to develop tourism, ecotourism in these areas. In Uganda, for example, since the Paris Agreement, I think we've only been able to get one project on GCF, and it's a national project. but at what point do the SMEs access these resources? And then we also need to enhance public-private partnership, because we cannot keep complaining of resources to develop the infrastructure in these areas. Developing infrastructure in the mountains is very, very expensive because of the terrain, and therefore we need to look at innovative sources of financing by looking at private partnership, private-public partnership. And then also we need to look at community-based and inclusive tourism models. For example, in Uganda, we have arrangements where we let the local communities to be responsible for managing, for example, the tourism trucks, the cultural sites, so that they also earn revenue from these resources. And then we also support the local and marginalized communities. And then we also look at, because it's all about livelihood. A poor person, a hungry person cannot conserve the mountains. But if you provide them with alternative sources of livelihood, these sources of livelihood would reduce the negative impact that the activities have on the mountains, and therefore conserve the integrity of these mountains. And then, of course, we also look at investing in human resources, building capacity of both the technical people who are responsible for the management of these resources, as well as the local communities. And then promoting climate resilience through climate resilience infrastructure, for example, investing in renewable energy, investing in appropriate facilities for managing waste, sustainable transportation, and putting in place infrastructure in the mountains that would attract visitors. Because the young people, for example, would not want to, I'm going to talk about Mount Rwenzori, which is in Uganda. It's the third highest peak in Africa. A young person would not be encouraged to climb to Mount Rwenzori, because then they would ask you, I'll not have access to internet, I'll not have access to Snapchat, TikTok. So if we put in place that kind of infrastructure, then it would encourage the young people to go up there. And then, of course, finally, we need to do monitoring and evaluation of all these systems and track how these policies and strategies are affecting the environment in the mountains, so that we can be able to monitor and put in place mitigation measures to reduce on the negative environment and social impacts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's wonderful to hear, from Africa, and so the commonalities of like what you're saying about investments, right? So the need to invest, but then the sources of those investments, and so the whole idea of looking at both the private and the public sector, being involved. But I think the key thing that you also mentioned is that you can have a big conference where people have access to funding, but then the real issue is the little SME, the small and medium enterprise, at the grassroots. How do they access, these issues or these resources? And so access becomes a key issue. But also you mentioned people and the local governments that they represent, and so getting them involved. But you mentioned the word integrated many, many times. And so this is not something that one agency or one line agency can do. So we need to take a very integrated approach. But I think the key thing that you're saying is that policy has to be in place. And so it is policy that will often drive us from where we are to where we need to be. So that's just a summary of a lot of good ideas that came from here. So towards the end of, to my left, is Chiring Sherpa. And so, this is one of those anecdotes where we say, Sagarmatha was beautiful, so a lot of people came, so a lot of people threw a lot of garbage, so it stopped being nice. So I think this is a cycle that we need to break, and here's somebody, who's actually been working on it. So Chiring, tell us your experience with the Sagarmatha Pollution, Control Committee, please.
Namaste, it's a great honor to be here. I just came from Everest Base Camp the day before yesterday for this program, and to share my experience, this Sagarmatha Pollution Control Committee, SPCC, have been working for more than 3 decades in Everest region. And we also deploy our team to set the route between Camp 2 and Everest Base Camp in Everest, which is also known as a Khumbu Icefall, and which is the most dangerous part of climbing Mount Everest. And our team is also known as Icefall Doctor Team. And we have been deploying our team for more than 24 years now. And beside that, we also manage the waste in Everest. And not only Mount Everest, we also manage the waste in whole Khumbu region, whole Everest region. So it's been more than 30 years now we have been working in that region. It's a very local-based NGO. We are not based in Kathmandu. We are based in Namche. We are based in Lukla. So we are very working in a grassroots way. So in our experience, Mount Everest is not our not only mountain. It's a livelihood. It's a very important part of livelihood to shape a community. So in terms of tourism, I think in the context of Nepal, Mount Everest is the major part of tourism. This is the only competency we have in terms of tourism if we need to compete to other part of the world. But unfortunately, the policymaker from Nepal, we do not realize the importance of Mount Everest. So we're only talking about the cultural part of tourism. We're always talking about homestay of the tourism, but we never give the priority to the mountaineering tourism. Because if we look the story of tourism in Nepal, the foreigner came here only for Himalaya, not for rhino, not for homestay. But it's unfortunate to say that people only focus on other part of the tourism. So as a local from Khumbu region and the Sherpa people, and also the summiter of Everest, I just summited Mount Everest last year. And we have been working in Mount Everest for so long time because what we feel is if we do not take the ownership as a local, because the problem is what we have there is we are the one who suffered the first. So in terms of the glove, like last year in August 16, there was a glove in Thame. And it's been more than 1 year that more than 25 houses were completely destroyed. More than 10 families were completely displaced. But still from our government side or from other part of the world, no one came to support there, So it's been more than 1 year. So as a local from there, what our concern is, we are the one who suffered first from this climate change issue. As we all know that we do not have any contribution for this climate change, but we are the one who are suffered first. So as a local, what we learn is we need to take the ownership to face this problem. Every people have their own role. Policymakers have their own role. Everyone have NGO, INGO. But as a local, we need to take the first ownership. So recently, what we have decided is we want to work in Thame region. As a SPCC, we have been working mostly focused on waste management. But recently, we have jumped into the climate change issues. Because after this incident, what we realize is we are the one who suffered the most, but we are the one who gave less priority. Because even after the 1 year, this incident, there is no project going on to support this community. So recently we have developed our plan to set up the early warning system in Thame Lake, and also want to put some early warning system and a siren system to aware the local community if this incident happen again. Because still there is still 3 lakes which is in danger. So as a local, what we are doing is we need to take the ownership and work ourselves. So that's the one experience. Also about the waste in Everest, I would like to share is, it's been more than 24 years now we are working in Everest, and every year more than 60 tons of waste generated in Everest in each climbing season. Not only that, now more than 2,000 people are staying in Everest base camp, and every people are peeing directly in glacier. And no one knows what is the impact of that peeing in the glacier directly. No research has been done yet. No one is aware about that. So I'm sure it have a very bad impact on environment. We need to sustain, we need to manage the waste there, because Everest is not the mountain. We also treat as a God, as earlier said, we do the puja ceremony before climbing, because is a God for us. As a Sherpa people, what we believe is we are going to summit, so we pay the respect that, we are going to take an excuse, because we treat mountain as a God. So we are going to mountain, but we need to take an excuse. For livelihood, we need to go there, but we are paying the respect to them. So that's it. I will share for now.
No, thank you very much. So this, I think, is, yeah, thank you. So this, I think, is very important because I think in the Sambaad, or the Sagarmatha Sambaad, listening to voices, that actually come from the local is just as important as somebody who traveled from Oman, on a trip. And then there's somebody working for Oxfam, that looks like livelihood. And then there's the head of the WWF, who actually manages a lot of resources. And then this whole issue of policy. So I think, if you look at the Sambaad, and if you look at, the way a jigsaw puzzle would work, so different people have different pieces or different answers to the problem. And so the whole idea, I guess, is to come together and see if we can do something collectively. And so the word integrated was used very often, but we do need to take an integrated approach. But this key question of ownership that Shering just mentioned is very important because, when a glacial lake outburst, happens in Thame, it is the people of Thame who get hurt. And so you can write a paper about it, you can show pictures of it, but then we have to realize that the frontline people are the ones who suffer. So I think, just having this voice, at the Sambaad itself, I think is a very critical piece of it. So what we'll do is just pause on this side. So let me see in the audience if there are any questions that you would like to ask the panelists. Okay, so let's do 1, 2, and then 3. So this is very good. From 3 sections, 3 different questions. Let's do 1 round and then we'll come back. Please.
Thank you. My name is Indra Sabgoda. I work for the Ministry of Forest and Environment. I'm going to ask a question, keeping in my mind that the recent dispute over the Pathivara temple in the eastern part of the country. Probably you can see this issue from all perspectives of nature, culture, and adventure too. In this context, may I ask a question to you all, especially panelists from Nepal? Any of you can respond to this question. How can we preserve the cultural value of sacred Pathivara while promoting it as a destination for nature-based adventure, tourism, without disrupting the ecological and spiritual balance?
Very good.
Thank you.
So let's take a few more questions and then I'll summarize it for everybody. Yeah, please. Yeah, Bitsapa. Yeah, just let's go turn by turn. It's fine. Please.
Thank you. I'm Krishna Tiwari, Institute of Forestry. Thank you, Dr. Gurung, for nice presentations. My question is, I'm working on some high mountain rangeland ecosystem also. I don't know in Lomanthang now the nomadism is still or not in the Lomanthang area. 15 years ago I did the research about the impact of nomadism with the climate change in rangeland area. In addition, I did the research in the continue this area also. So now I found that these yak and chori farmers, might be the last generations, maybe next generation, they will not work with their children because most of the children are out, but only old people are working on it. Even though now that this is the cultures, yak and this is the livelihood also, but now you talk about now there is the more on the accessibility also, with planting, with the construction of the road in the rangeland also, the damaging all these grassland also, and also drying the rangeland, as well as the increasing the pollution. When the accessibility increase the pollution also. Yeah. So in the context, how are we coping these yak and chori farmers also to make the more benefit for the young generation? Thank you very much.
So just pass the mic to that. Yeah, please. The mic is not working. If you the mic is no, pahila uda. No, action. We'll sort out the technology in a few years also.
Thank you. My name is Anil Misra. I represent Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, UNESCO. Thank you for a very inspiring talk and testimonies. I was just wondering, listening to all these testimonies, whether any application of citizen science has been applied in those regions, engaging citizens for data generation, calibration, and validation. I'm a hydrologist, so now there is an opportunity to engage citizens with the technology and gather those data gaps, address those data gaps, and it will be sustainable because it will create buy-in effect, whether citizen science has been applied in any of those processes that you just described. Thank you.
Very good. So let me just, can I see some hands again? So we did 3. Please.
Dhanyavad. I am Dian Koirala from Karnali province. I have very short question.
Please.
After 72 earthquake and post-COVID scenario, why the mountain people are very suffering outward migration, and though the many possibilities in the mountains, why people are migrating outside, and what is the cause for this migration and the future development of mountain biodiversity, cultural biodiversity so far?
Okay.
We are very keen to demand the answer from panelists. Thank you.
Very good. So and we'll go one more, please.
सबैजनालाई नमस्ते मेरो question छ since Sherpaji said that policymakers are not that much interested, I'm asking this question from yesterday onwards. What kind of policies and laws do you stakeholders, agencies and institutions, those are working on this sector, want us from? I will suggest that you should also have a samvad with policymakers. And then we will get the answers. Thank you.
Very good. So, Nansa. So, please.
My name is Buddhinarayan Srestha. I'm a border analyst and advisor to the Nepal Mountaineering Association. My short query to Chiring Sherpa. You are working to control the Sagarmatha pollution.
Yes.
Study reveals that Sagarmatha is going to be polluted year by year because expeditioners leave plastic materials, even tents and empty oxygen bottles. And even the dead bodies have been left from the time of George Mallory expedition till this date. And this season also 2 expeditioners died, so far as I know. I know you are trying to control the pollution over Sagarmatha. My query to you is, what are your suggestions to the government bodies to stop or to mitigate the pollution from base camp to camp number 4 or 3? My second query to you is, should the permit to ascend the Everest be in alternative years, 1 year stopping and next year be giving permission? So what are your suggestions? Thank you.
Thank you. So this is, very, just hold on. No, we'll come to you, don't worry. So, this is amazing. So what I'm going to do is come back here. So maybe we start with the cable car, okay? So what is your opinion about cable cars in the mountains? So, Rajan? So should we have cable cars? And so just a summary of that question, please. What do you think? Yeah, please.
So starting on cable car, I think, it's not us to define, whether we need cable car or not. So if we have a dialogue with the communities, I think they are the one who should come up with whether they require those resources or not. Because this is 21st century, and we need to respect, people's voice. If they don't want, and if they have the idea, to preserve in a different way, I think we need to respect that. So that we need to have a hope and trust on the people.
Local people. Nadia, so do you think, what Buddhinarayan sir just mentioned, should we basically have mountaineering on alternate, years? And what is the best way to manage, trash up there?
I think they will not be happy about that because more they are asking for permits. I think this year this is the above 400 permits they issued to climb Mount Everest. I think it's hard for this decision to decide, but there is other ways to manage the waste and control how they are climbing. Like this year, I think from next season, it will be must that any climber, they must to climb one peak above 8,000, so they allow him to climb Mount Sagarmatha. So there is other rules, not to keep year by year, but continue climbing with new rules.
Okay, Ghana? So if you take the mic, so what do you think about these nomad communities? And so what does, tree plantations or road infrastructure, do to people who depend on grazing and nomads?
I think nomads is slowly dying. There is still some left. And I've seen my own goat, all gone. So I'd say there's very little stopping is there. So I think there's a possibility of the pastures that are getting bad. It's not only the people, like the roads have come, people are doing something else. Yaks are very valuable, very, very valuable. The cost has gone up the roof. But thing is, the pastures have degraded so much, so people are unable to manage sustainable. That's a major issue. So from climatic angle, that if there's pastures are improved, there's some nomadicism. I would not say total nomadicism, but more of a agro-pastoralists will continue to remain. In terms of goats, it's still there. Because goats live in everything. So that's there. So your information, that's still there. Even like a last yak herder, that is documentary was made in Thay. There's only one family still owns a yak, and the village has been shifted all to the riverbeds, now growing apples.
Very
so
good.
that's still there.
Yeah, we'll just hold on. So, Maureen, the question to you is about policy. So this is the bad habit. You ask a question and then you leave. So answer to this policy maker who is not here.
Yes, thank you.
What do you think? No. I'm trying to answer the question here.
Yes, thank you, moderator. I'm going to talk about a question on policies. And basically, it's about what kind of policies do we need to conserve the mountains and tourism on the mountains. So for me, the first thing about policy is that it must involve the local people. They must be involved in the policy making. They must be involved in the different processes. They must give consent to the different projects that we implement on the mountains. And this starts also by involving the marginalized groups. The women, the elderly, the vulnerable people should be involved in these processes. And then the second thing is that we must have policies that recognize the rights of the people. We have indigenous people on the mountains. When we make policies, we must recognize the rights they have. We must promote the cultural diversity in these mountains. And we must make sure that we continue to promote the culture and not lose the culture in our mountains. We have a community in Uganda called the Batwa. They are an indigenous group recognized by the UN. And whatever we do in Mount Virunga and Mount Rwenzori, so far they've been marginalized. But we are trying to put in place policies that ensure that they are part of the process. And then we also need to put in place fiscal policies. For example, environment bonds. When people climb Mount Sagarmatha, how much money do they deposit as a bond? Which money should be channeled back into cleaning up the environment? Because there is so much waste on those mountains up there. But who bears the cost of cleaning? So we must put in place fiscal policies to ensure that we use these resources to preserve the environment. And then finally, we must put in place policies to ensure equitable benefit sharing so that the communities feel that they are benefiting from these mountains.
Wonderful. So Chiring, the short question, why are people leaving the mountains?
Leaving the mountains is, if we really study deeply, it's a question of opportunity. If you have a nice opportunity in other part, people always live. So in the context of mountaineering also, the new generation of Sherpa, especially from Everest region, they are not engaging in this profession because it's highly risk job and we are earning more in other parts. So because of the opportunity, this thing happened. And other question related with the Everest West, I would like to say is, like in Nepal, if issues arise, we always think about banning that issues. But I think the management is the important part. So in the case of Everest, every year more and more mountainers are coming to climb. Like last year, more than 478 people got the permit to climb Mount Everest, and this year around 428 people are climbing. And with this increasing number, there is always issue of waste, but the management of waste is important because with banning the climber to climb mountain, it will not only impact the Sherpa life, but also the whole tourism. So we know the economic condition of Nepal. We need more money for Nepal. So I don't think that we allow to ban or,
Sure.
for taxation reason also, I think. And another question I would like to say is about the policy. About the policy, the new tourism policy is going to change. 2081, which is registered in the National Assembly now. But we have been ruled by tourism policy 2035 till now. So within this long year, we have never changed any policy. So even this current new policy, there is a one part in mountain section, but whole tourism policy is drafted in terms of casino perspective. So my concern is, Nepal tourism for Nepal is Himalaya, but we are changing this policy in terms of casino purpose. So I have a request for all those policymakers. While changing this policy, tourism policy, we should give more priority on mountaineering also, Himalaya also, and also in terms of climate change also. We are talking about climate change issue, but with this tourism policy, no one is thinking in terms of climate change. So while drafting this policy, while making this policy, I think we should think in terms of mountain, in terms of climate change also. And about the yak farming, there was one question, because I'm from Everest region. We have lots of yak we used to have. In my village, every household have the yak before, but within these 20 years, now only 4 or 5 families have only yak. Okay. So while studying what was the reason for vanishing this yak farming is to have the yak and to have this yak farming is very difficult job and very less economic value. So in the new situation, new generation, we got a new opportunity to earn more money than yak farming. That's why this is vanishing. In terms of Khumbu, tourism have a booming every year, and we are earning more on tourism. So this old traditional yak farming is vanishing, which is bad, unfortunately, but that's the reality.
Okay. So so there was a question about citizen science, and so Rajan might be in a good position. So are people generating local science, local data, for policy making?
Thank you, Dr. Misra. So Oxfam has been applying, like the citizen science concept in the transboundary rivers too. So not only, like generating data in the other rivers, but also in the transboundary river, just to, challenge the people in terms of blame games. So now we are in a process of developing these citizen-led river health reports, so that citizens will be informed about the river, they will understand the challenges. So we have used these info kits at this stage. So it has simple pH, like litmus paper to understand the pH of the water, and we are making a report on that. Even we are working with Water Energy Commission Secretariat, so is the nodal agency on water resource management, along with watershed departments. So then with them also we are piloting a project in Rangoon watershed in Sudur Paschim area. So where citizen science has been applied and they have been trained on that, and we are linking it with school education. So with the schools, so they do have practicals. So linking with that and understanding about, about the river through technologies. So that would be a great power and evidence. So that can lobby on the policies.
Nadia, please.
Can I add about citizen science? Because there is a program, they call it GLOBE program. It's held by NASA and it's in all over the world. And it's as a community, it's gather scientists, teachers, and students also. So we have this experience in Oman. We took students to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest peak in Africa. So while they are climbing, they've been collecting the data, and all the data, it was managed by through the satellite missions for specific data. They are crossed by the same time. So they collecting the data about water, about air, about soil. So that's how we create, we build citizen scientists. Also, we did the same experience in Oman. We took students to highest peak in Oman, Jabal Shams. So it was not just climbing. They learned about the plants, they learned about the air, they learned about why the air is cooler up, why the air is hotter down. So that's how we did. And they collect the data. So they submit the data they have at the website. So there is a huge data about from all over the country. And there is each school, they have their own page on this website, and it's open data. Anybody can use it. And also they are using the same equipment exactly in everywhere. They are collecting the data about let's say the air at the noon time. So everything, it should be at the specific conditions. So any scientist, they can use this data. So this is also another way how we create and how we build citizen scientists in our country through students and through school.
Yeah. So Dr. Gurung.
I just want to say citizen scientists in conservation field has been last 25 years. From a highest level of a GPS radio collaring of the species like tigers, national leopards to just genetic monitoring to even monitoring of rivers as river ranges. That's been a very long practice and it's working. And it's one of the key conservation contributors that's coming from the local people. I was part of citizen scientists and youth engagement and so forth. The other one, I really want to talk about migration. Migration, I think Mr. Sherpa has clearly made, that's all about playing with income generation and income levels. There's two things. One is income and one income levels. When we talk about, in my lifetime, I saw Manang, whoever Manang is here, that late 60s and early 70s, they come in Kathmandu. As soon as the tourism came up, they went up. Same thing in my own Mustang village. If the tourism had not been here, my village would have been empty by now, most of the places, locked doors, okay? So I think it's really important we need to understand is tourism is one of the vehicles that really helps to maintain culture in the mountains, revival of the cultures, people keeping in the land, so distribution is better, but only way to do is to do a management better. With local culture, seeds, varieties of things which we are talking about, the story that we heard about it. So just I want to put this across. Is migration, you cannot stop, it happens. It's the economy skill, opportunity, so it happens. But there's a possibility you can keep it on the mountains, and Sherpas look at that. How many Sherpas outside here, Kathmandu, in the US and out in Europe? But looking at that, it's still Sherpas on the top of the mountains because of that tourism. So this is something we shouldn't be forgetting it. There's something the government has to make a policy on that. And policy, I really want to say, the policies have to be very much integrated way of coming from the bottom. There will be more implementation. If your policies are on the top, then the implementation becomes much more difficult, and that's why we've been facing it. So I want to stop here. Thank you.
Good. So let me see the hands again. So yeah, the mic able to, yeah, this. So let's not worry about the time because we're about 10 minutes. So we will stop at 10:30 because we have to empty the rooms for other people. But let's get as many of it as we can, please.
नमस्कार, मेरो नाम विमला सुवेदी, म कानुन न्याय तथा मानवाधिकार समितिको सभापति। म प्रश्न नेपालीमै गर्छु। एउटा चाहिँ पहिलो प्रश्न मेरो जस्तो अहिले हाम्रो छिरिङजीले राख्नु भएको थियो, यो पोलिसी मेकरहरूले चाहिँ कुरा बुझिदिनु भएन भनेर उहाँले चाहिँ फेरि आफ्नो कुरा पनि राख्नुभयो। त्यसैले म आफू पोलिसी मेकिङ गर्ने ठाउँमै भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि हाम्रो भूमिका के हो, हामीले कहाँनिर के गर्नु पर्यो, यो विषयमा चाहिँ हामी गर्न तयार छौँ। यहाँहरूको सुझाव राम्रोसँग आओस् एक नम्बरमा। दुई नम्बरमा अहिले जुन यो जलवायु परिवर्तन कार्बन उत्सर्जनको कारणले गर्दा विश्वमा चाहिँ जलवायु परिवर्तन जो आइरहेको छ त्यसको मुख्य दोषी देश नेपाल चाहिँ हो भन्ने लाग्दैन मलाई। कम कार्बन उत्सर्जन गर्ने देशमा पर्छ। त्यसकारणले गर्दाखेरि यसमा जुन कार्बन उत्सर्जन भइरहेको देशहरूबाट माउन्टेन हाम्रो चाहिँ हिमाल र सगरमाथा जुन हाम्रो मुटु हो, त्यसकारणले यो मुटु बचाउनको निमित्त विश्वका देशहरूबाट र समुदायबाट हामीलाई कस्तो सहयोग हुन्छ भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ म राख्न चाहन्छु। र साथसाथै यो जलवायु परिवर्तनको कारणले जो तापक्रम बढ्दै गइरहेको छ र यसको तापक्रम चाहिँ अब 2039 देखि 49 सम्म चाहिँ 2 डिग्री सेल्सियसमा पुग्छ भन्ने खालको जो आकलन गरिराखिएको छ। त्यसलाई घटाउन के गर्ने हो, यो प्रश्न चाहिँ मैले यहाँ गर्न चाहे। धन्यवाद।
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much to all the panel members for this interesting presentation and discussion. And I also like to thank this panel member because they touched upon the issue of human mobility in the context of changing climate. So human mobility, I mean relocation, migration, and displacement. And one of the things that I would like to draw the attention of everyone in the room is when we are talking about addressing this climate mobility in the context of changing climate, and the multifaceted nature of human mobility, then we should not forget 3 things. One, providing support to help people stay in their homes as long as it is possible. 2, support to people who have already been displaced and who are more due to climate and environmental factors. And number 3, support for people to more safely and orderly if this is something that they choose for. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Wonderful speakers on the dais. I have something to say to the lady from Oman. Congratulations, you have summited Mount Everest. That's a big deal. I just have a question to ask you. How did you find the women who are the real operators on the ground as you climb up to Everest? Every tea house is operated by women, mostly, because of the migration that we've been talking about. Health, hygiene, sanitation situations. Because, I've been working in the field of tourism for many years, and we've been talking about empowering rural tourism level. So that's a question that I have for you. And, of course, SPCC, that I know very well, and I've been also president of the Trekking Association. And those days, we tried to work with SPCC. Now, one important question for you is, are you working with the Trekking Association of Nepal, which is the biggest, it's the association of trekking operators. They are the ones who are responsible for whatever pollution you might be calling. I would be one of them too. So if you are working closely, and again, I have another hat that I worked in the government for a while, and that time I made sure, because from the private sector, we always say that the royalties earned by the high mountains, some percentage should go to the ground, areas where these mountains are situated. And the government did implement that. And recently, I think there's been increment. But are you getting a share of that too? Because your job is great, I know the garbage that's brought back, you refund the money, isn't it, Sevinti? So that's important. And I'm talking about your sustainability. The work that you are doing up in the Everest is something that's a big contribution to help mitigate the environmental pollution that we are talking about. And wonderful, thank you for the speakers. Thank you very much.
So, Chering, what do you think? So, are you working with the Trekking Association, and are you getting money from the trekkers?
As you suggest, it's a very important role of Trekking Agency Association in terms of waste in Khumbu, because if we look in the data, tourism is directly related in the context of Khumbu. So, but unfortunately, I have to say that, those who are working in Kathmandu, who are based in city, they normally work only in city. They never go back to the community. Mm-hmm. So it's unfortunate to say that we don't get any fund from TAN or any other agency, Mm-hmm. NMA, we have been a partner for a long time. It's been more than 20 years now. So they have been supporting, and we also have a role to check the permit if there are any illegal activity going on in mountains.
Yeah, so Cherik, the last word from Narek. How did you find the women entrepreneurs, on your climbing experience?
It's less. I saw all everything. The operators is by men in everywhere, but just maybe I saw maybe 2 lodges like tea houses. It's run by ladies, and it's suddenly unfortunately her husband he died in avalanche on Amadablam. But I think it's less. But there is some Sherpa also, lady Sherpa. They are running this business. But I think it's not strong enough to have women in this on this field. They have the abilities. They are ready, I think. But I don't know what's the challenges they face here. But we see there is the Dawa Sherpa. She's working with National Geographic. There is a Queen of Everest. She climbed Everest more than 10 times. So there is so many role models of Nepalese women. We can look after them. So, but I think it's less. It's not that so much we saw on the way.
Very good. Okay, so this is when you heard the bell. So what we want to do is close this panel. But there is a reason why there is lunch time, tea time, so that this conversation can continue. So make sure that you meet the policymakers. And so it'll be a really good forum if we continue the conversation beyond the allocated time. So once again, let's give a big hand, to our panelists. So thank you very much. And I'm sure, the organizers have something, to give you. So let's be, patient, please.
Yeah, really interesting conversation and insightful session. Thank you to all our panelists and the speakers and all the participants that were in this conversation. So we are really late for we are at the end of the session, so to express our sincere gratitude, we would like to present a token of appreciation to our speakers and moderators. So may I kindly invite Kusum Devi Thapa, the chairperson, Honorable Kusum Devi Thapa, chairperson, Parliamentary Committee on Agriculture Cooperation of Natural Resources and House of Representatives, to the stage to present the token of appreciation. And I'd like to invite Dr. Ghanasam Gurung to receive the token of appreciation. Pictures. I'll again like to request Miss Kusum Devi Thapa to present the token of love to Rajan Subedi. I'll again like to request Honorable MP Kusum Devi Thapa to present a token of appreciation to Nadira Al-Harti. I'd also like to request her again to provide a token of love to Miss Maureen Anino. Again, I like to kindly request Ms. Honorable Kusum Devi Thapa to present a token of love to Mr. Chiring Sherpa. And finally, at the end, I'd like to request Kusum Devi Thapa to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Anil Chitrakar. Also, we'd like to request everyone on the stage for a group picture. A short announcement that we have souvenirs for all the international delegates of the Sagarmatha Sambaad in the reception. Please, we kindly request you to collect yours before you leave, and we will have a 15 minutes tea break and see you shortly in the same hall. Thank you.